we have a new TNT champion. For the second time in a 24-hour period, Wardlow lost the TNT championship. That is a record. That is not a record I think he wanted to set. But after he beat Samoa Joe for the belt at Revolution, his car was broken into in San Francisco, which is like a rite of passage over there. I get the impression that you haven't really experienced San Francisco until you've had your car broken into. And whoever broke into his car stole the title belt along with the rest of his gear. And then on Dynamite the next night, because he had no gear, they turned his match with Powerhouse Hobbs into a false count anywhere street fight that Hobbs won when QT Marshall hit Wardlow with a chair, and the two of them gave Wardlow a spine buster off the stage, a full foot off the stage, onto what looked like a cardboard crash pad. Now, I don't think it was actually cardboard, but it may as well have been. And Wardlow was unable to get back up before the 10 count. I hated how they did it, but I'm happy to see Hobbs win gold for the first time. Having QT Marshall be the one to help him win it is very suspect. Now, I saw the very heated exchanges on Twitter between QT and Raj Giri, and QT even challenged Raj at one point to sign a waiver and get in the ring with him at the Nightmare Factory so that he could kick his ass. All because, from what I could see, and maybe something Raj posted, because I know he deletes a lot of his tweets, so maybe I missed something here. But this all started because Raj said he didn't understand Wardlow's booking since Double or Nothing last year. And QT responded by telling him that's because you have no understanding of the inner workings of professional wrestling. And it just devolved from there. Neither one of them came out of this looking good. I know QT trains a lot of students, and he is well-liked behind the scenes in AEW. He was always Cody's guy, and that was a big knock on him, but he does a lot of things behind the scenes, and he's a well-liked guy. But if you are going to push back on people who have an issue with Wardlow's booking since Double or Nothing, I would hit back with one very simple question. All I need to do is ask one question. Is Wardlow better off today than he was in May of 2022? And if the answer is no, then guess what? It is a perfectly valid criticism. And nobody in their right mind could argue that Wardlow is better off today than he was a year ago. You would have to be drinking so much of the Kool-Aid, my God, with all that sugar, Wilford Brimley would rise from the dead to sell some diabetes testing supplies to you. QT has not made an appearance on Dynamite in 3 months. And it's QT Marshall. I mean, when he is on TV, he's there to get other people over. So it made for a very flat finish. And it is shameful to see how far Wardlow has fallen in just 1 year. A year ago this past week, when he left that Dynamite Diamond ring on the mat for CM Punk to use on MJF in their dog collar match, Wardlow was white hot. The fans, they were ready to embrace him as just this next big thing. And after that whole fiasco with MJF over Double or Nothing weekend in Vegas, it has been nothing but down for Wardlow. What should have been the biggest moment of his career was totally overshadowed. Then he won the TNT title, and he had one of the worst runs that anyone has ever had with that title. Only Scorpio Sky's run was worse. They beat him for the belt at Full Gear. Then Joe beat him again and cut off his ponytail. And I think around that period he had some injuries he was dealing with. But again, they beat him, they cut his ponytail off, he wins the title back, then he has his car broken into, which could always end up being an angle. I don't think it is, but who knows? Maybe it ends up being an angle. And has the belt stolen, and then he immediately loses the championship to Powerhouse Hobbs. Now he's back in the chase spot again, and maybe he'll win it back, but look, what is it even going to mean if he does? If Wardlow beats Hobbs at Double or Nothing and wins back the TNT title, who cares? Who cares? Does it mean anything? For Hobbs' sake, I hope Tony Khan does better by him than he did with Wardlow. I'm going to reserve judgment on Hobbs and QT as a pairing until I see how it plays out. Apparently, we're getting a QTV segment on Dynamite this Wednesday. I don't know. That's his new gimmick now, QTV. I don't know if that's QAnon or what that is. I guess we'll find out together. Bryan Danielson was not there after his loss to MJF in the Iron Man match, but they aired a great post-Revolution promo he did backstage, dried blood on his face, nearly in tears. Said, I wanted to teach my kids, if you love something, you gotta fight for it. And what I realized is that Max is right. My whole career was about fighting and never giving up. And when I woke up from being unconscious, my first instinct was to fight. And as I was fighting, I realized I couldn't feel my arms. And my left leg had no strength anymore. And when Max said after Revolution he wouldn't be able to play with his kids anymore, I realized he was right. I was putting myself before my family. More than tapping out, that made me more ashamed than anything else. I think it's time for me to go home. Really good stuff that put over how the loss impacted him. When so many matches today, it's just on to the next, or somebody comes out and they're smiling and it doesn't matter. This loss mattered to Bryan Danielson. So much so that he's going to take some time off and figure out what his next step is going to be. I think he takes a couple of months off, comes back in time for a match at Forbidden Door. I don't even know that he's really needed at Double or Nothing. He can come back for the pay-per-view that I'm sure we're going to have Forbidden Door in June. Maybe a match with Zack Sabre Jr. He was supposed to wrestle him at Forbidden Door last year. He didn't get cleared in time. Maybe they do the match this year. I really like the Ruby Soho promo on Wednesday in the ring with Renee. This was her Why Ruby Why promo coming out of her heel turn at Revolution, blaming the fans for creating this monster. She pointed out that her first title match in AEW at Grand Slam a couple of years ago was against Britt Baker. All right, an AEW homegrown. And when Britt beat her, the fans were thrilled. And this is at a time when Britt was a heel. And the people cheered. Fast forward to the semifinals of the Owen Hart tournament last May, where she wrestled another homegrown talent in Chris Statlander. And after she beat Stat, the fans booed her out of the building. Booed Ruby, that is, out of the building. Then at Revolution, when their favorite homegrown star Jamie Hayter pinned her, she realized at that moment that nobody was ever going to come to her defense. Nobody was ever going to be mad when she lost. And she's not the only one not to be appreciated. She said AEW didn't even have the decency when Toni Storm won the women's title to call her the champion. They had to call her the interim champion. And then Saraya came out of retirement and all the fat, neck-bearded, mouth-breathing trolls came after her. They've been outcasts since the day they came into AEW. That's their new name, by the way. They're calling them the Outcasts. She said that they came here to help rebuild the women's division. You can't rebuild on broken foundation. You can only demolish that foundation and start new. And she's absolutely right about the crowd reaction she got in those matches. And it was nice to see them tie that fact into this story here, that all those matches came against AEW originals. Britt Baker, Chris Statlander, Jamie Hayter. So if you're wondering, why would they have such animosity towards the homegrown talent? Now we know. Right? That's a valid explanation for why she would be so pissed off and feel the way that she feels. And would feel underappreciated. You can understand her justification. This was better than anything that we have heard from Saraya or Toni Storm up to this point. The problem is still the whole NWO cosplay thing with the spray paint. I would have them ditch that and just do their own thing. The concept of them being outsiders is fine, because they are, in a way, but the spray paint stuff is just totally lame.